Since you actually bothered to click this video, odds are high that you're someone willing to take a chance on something weird that they know nothing about. I mean, seriously. Umihara Kawase. What even is that? Well, esteemed and open-minded viewer, would you believe that this low-budget Japanese-exclusive game about fishing is one of the best games of its era? Good, because neither would I. No, but this is a very good game, and it's way too humble to care about being the best anyway. The whole game is just about a girl and her fishing pole, really, but there's no other game like it. Bionic Commando dared to ask, what if you couldn't jump in a platformer? But Umihara Kawase expanded the idea so much that you can't describe it as anything but its own self-carved niche. The tether platformer. The mechanics are incredibly simple, but offer a frankly astounding set of options and interactions with only 3 buttons. There's the D-pad for movement and pulling in your fishing line, there's a button to jump, and most importantly, a button to cast your fishing line. Once you extend it, you can either hook on to fish and put them in your bag, or more interestingly, latch on to any surface in the game. After you've hooked to a surface, the real fun begins. Because you can swing, launch yourself, shimmy downward, save yourself from a dangerous fall. This game is a huge accomplishment purely from a programming perspective, just because of how intricate the physics engine is. It's enough to cause slowdown on the SNES occasionally, just from the massive number of calculations it needs to make. Umihara was developed as something of a challenge for its creator, Kiyoshi Sakai. And while I don't share his passion for programming, it's hard not to be awed by the guy's dedication. He built the game from the ground up, taking charge of every step of development, from programming to higher level directing. But more than that, what's truly brilliant about Umihara Kawase is how, almost without fail, every player that approaches it will look like an absolute idiot doing so. I don't mean that the game is difficult, I mean that it controls so wildly different from any other game that no one will have any idea what they're doing at first. Just like that, every player that approaches the game is put onto the same level playing field. They'll all clumsily bumble through the levels, just happy to get a little better each time, taking alternate paths, using shortcuts, and practicing from the title screen so they don't waste a bunch of lives next time. And this feeling takes an incredibly long time to end. With most games, a player will hit the skill ceiling at some point, but Umihara Kawase's is so high that even the best players in the world, who can finish the entire game in 2 minutes, still have things to learn. It's a simple game about overcoming adversity for its own sake, with every playthrough feeling different for no other reason than your newfound grasp of momentum. Although the game can end, there are multiple different endings, and all offer nothing more than a credit sequence, so a player's time with the game really never feels done. If they're good enough to unlock all the levels, they're already good enough to start thinking about speedrunning. The developers have stated on record that the mechanics of the game came first, and the scenario second, but it's amazing how well suited the scenario is to this kind of gameplay. The whole game is framed as a child discovering the world a little bit at a time, and is probably just her overactive imagination putting a surreal bend on her lazy summer fishing trips. As she trips, falls, and struggles to catch goldfish, it reflects on your own struggles to master the game's physics. The game is always relaxing, with humor, soft visuals, and incredibly calming music to contrast its brutally difficult design, and that motivates you to go forward. Now, you might want an example of this in action, but truth is, most of the levels in the game accomplish the same thing. But since this is designing for, and we've got a mission statement to fulfill, take a look at field number 7. This level is filled with a bunch of octopi, all ready to shoot ink blobs at you. This proves very frustrating, as the ink isn't lethal, merely causing you to spin out for a few seconds. There's very little space to stand, and unlike other enemies, you can't reel in an octopus, so there isn't much you can do about their assault, just figure out when to move and keep going. This elevator requires pre-planning. Getting up to this ledge requires quick reflexes, and this part requires a complicated downward shimmy, but the relatively minor punishment of the ink inspires you to keep going, even as you fall down again and again. With every small failure, you're getting just a bit better at the game, discovering what works and what doesn't. And when you can go back to the level after truly understanding the game's mechanics, you can just do this. And then you get to face off against the game's first boss for your efforts, which is a nice reward since it's so different. It's a giant tadpole laying eggs that hatch frogs that hop after you. Needless to say, it's very cute. If I had to compare the game with another, it'd be one that's gotten some traction recently. Getting Over It with Bennett Foddy. Both games transition smoothly into speedrunning. Both offer a surprising amount of depth for the simplicity of their mechanics, and both are about overcoming your own obstacles and growing as a person because of it. But Umihara Kawase lets you feel good for making your own progress, even if you don't get over the mountain. It's there to capture a little bit of that feeling you had as a kid, where you struggled through everything, but that was okay just because there was so much left to discover in the world. The game has 2 sequels where you get to see Umihara grow older and say sayonara as you grow with her. But the first game's sense of discovery will always make it my favorite. It's never there to judge, only to encourage you to try for as long as you'd like. That's why this strange game that very few understand will always know how to design for understanding.